Hello, everybody. I'm trying to do something new here where I'm live streaming on YouTube, but then I'm trying to post it to Patreon. So I'm not exactly sure if this is working right now or not, or if you might be seeing this later or not, because I tried to record it privately and post it. I don't know. So I'm going to say words. I guess if you're seeing or hearing this, then my words worked. I'm doing a promo on my Patreon right now through August 12th, where anybody who signs up to the $15 or above tier, thank you very much, will get an RPG one shot with me. We can play Vampire, we can play Dungeons and Dragons. I guess if there was a big enough appetite for something else, we could play something else. Y'all know Battle Lords of the 23rd Century is my absolute jam, but that's neither here nor there. So, as a way of saying thank you, I wanted to kind of just ramble for a little bit about character creation and what makes an interesting character. What makes a character something memorable, but also like mechanically sound. Because I try my best with everything we do because at this point I've been on a lot of streams and played a lot of games, and I'm to the point now that a lot of times now when I make a character, I'm expressly trying to make something that is not like anything I've done before. Like I'm when I created Victor for LA by Night, I quite intentionally wanted Victor to be nothing like Chateau from We're Alive Frontier. Ironically enough, fast forward, and I think Victor and Chateau are actually really a lot alike because in the process of playing so many characters, and especially having the privilege of playing characters for so long, um, I'm starting to. I found like the limits of myself and what I bring to the table, which actually can be a strength when you have a character that is a lot like you, or at least builds on something um, that is already inside of you. Like I've gone on record many times saying Victor is basically me. He's slightly different, but I was like, I think if I became a vampire today, 15 years from now, my life would probably be kind of a lot like his. Um, so it's easy in that situation when you're role playing to react organically and react quickly and react in a way that makes sense. Which that is one of the things that I would say when you're creating your characters. This is probably going to be in no particular order because this is very much off the dome. My advice about being a pro gamer, or even if it's not your ambition to be pro as such, to get the most out of it. Uh, you need to know your character inside and out, who they are and what they would do. This applies if you're playing a role playing game. This also applies if you're writing things, if you're creating characters in some other outlet. You have to know who and what they are because then you can react both spontaneously but internally consistently. Like, a lot of people that are complaining about the end of Game of Thrones, just in case you haven't seen it, no spoilers, but people that are complaining about the end of Game of Thrones is because it seems like characters did very uncharacteristic things when the truth is, everything that happened was foreshadowed, literally all of it, but it was soft sold for a very long time and then rushed in a very unfulfilling way, which is what you don't want. Anything you do, ideally, from a storytelling standpoint, and role playing is storytelling, even when you're not the DM or the storyteller, you're still telling a story, should be simultaneously surprising but inevitable. And I will tell you, for these one shots that we're doing, or the people who've signed up for ongoing campaigns, again, thank you all. All this electricity is thanks to you. I appreciate it. Um, y- when you're playing a home game, the social aspect of it is as important or more important than anything else. The fact that you're going to get together and you're going to eat dinner together and you're going to talk about work and relationship problems and Netflix and talk about Stranger Things and have a couple beers and laugh and that's what she said. Ha 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 ha. That social aspect of it is a big part of why we get together and play these games in the first place. When you're streaming, all of that is extracted and there is nothing but the story, which is why we cover so much ground in the time that we do, pretty much in any stream. Tone wise, obviously, they're all different. Like, obviously, like a Tempting Fate, there's more breaks for silliness than there is in something like Vampire, which is incredibly immersive. But that's the main difference, by the way. If you're thinking about getting into streaming or already streaming, the number one skill that you need to hone is staying in character as much as possible, as long as possible. Obviously, there's times that it's going to break, and those times can be really fantastic, honestly, if you time them right. But for the most part, when you put on that costume, when you put on that role, be in that role. Which is funny because if you've heard the WonderCon episode of Vampire the podcast, or if you were there for it, at one point we have a guest come on who says to us, "Wow, it's so incredible how you guys stay in character." And we all react in character, which is funny. Hand to God, it didn't even occur to me that they were talking to me as a performer. I thought their character was talking to my character, and that's the only place I could come from, because it's just once we're in, we're in. When I'm Victor, I'm Victor. Um, i- in different people have different processes to get there, to get into putting that on. Again, I'll let Erica or Sin talk about how they do it. But they both have, long processes of getting things going. Alex, once he kind of puts his face on for Jasper, he's in. Me, I'm pretty much always there. I told you, there's been multiple times we're getting the 30-second countdown, and Alex and I are sitting there talking about anime or something, or a Pokemon, and we're like, blah, 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 blah. And they're like 10, 9, we're blah, 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 8, 6, 5. We're like, and then, and then the show starts because we just kind of turn it on and off. So different people have different ways to get there, which is fine. Um, oh, hey, apparently, some of you can see that I'm live streaming. I thought this was going to be unlisted. I didn't know it was going to be public, but hey, here you go. I was going to post it eventually. So GG, welcome aboard. Um, Talking about creating cool character concepts. Um, so as you're looking at creating a character, I would say a couple of things. If you don't have an automatic idea of what you want to do, the easiest thing to do is pick a character that you've seen in some other media. Like I want someone who's going to be like Legolas, or I want someone who's going to be like Aragorn, or I want somebody who's going to be like Severus Snape, or I want somebody who's going to be like Captain Kirk. Whatever. Pick kind of a post you can drive into the ground that you can then sort of create something relative to, or the exact opposite even. Like, again, at this point when I'm creating characters, I'm expressly trying to make them not like Victor. I'm expressly trying not to make party faces, in leadership roles, which is funny because there's another project I have coming up. I've been invited to participate in another stream, which shall remain nameless until it happens. But I very much was like, on the inside, I was like, I don't want to play a bard. I don't want to play a face. I don't want to play a diplomat. And literally, I was like, what do you guys need? They were like, we need a party face, some sort of diplomat, like a bard. This literally happened. And I was like, well, all right, why play against type? Let's do it. But I compensated for that by playing a character like Noseer, who at the D&D Live, who was the villain from Theogony of Kairos, is where he came from, who is a human bard, but he's evil. So the way his bard way of being manifests differently, right? So I would not start with I want to play a fighter or I want to play a rogue or whatever. I mean, I guess if that's what comes to your mind first, that's all well and good. That's cool. But just saying I want to play a fighter is surprisingly little information. So I would start with asking yourself, who do you want your character to be like? And then start kind of piling up some of the adjectives on it. This is the thing to sort of bring things to life. I think it's a shortcoming, especially in D&D, but a lot of fantasy stuff in general, to have uh orcs are bad because they're orcs. Elves are good because they're elves. Dwarves are drunkards because they're dwarves. It's like, that's kind of boring, leaning into the tropes. Everybody should want something. Your character should want something. Why are they here? Why are they adventuring? Why did they get up and leave the house today? What is it that they're trying to do? You know, uh, Obviously that's one of the differences between D&D and Vampire. Excuse me. Is that for the most part in D&D, you're an adventurer who's chosen to take up this mantle. For the most part in Vampire, you probably had it thrust upon you. And Vampire is a story of personal horror, not personal horrors, although it could be a story about that. I'm not here to judge. So for the most part, your vampires are not enjoying lives. I made a conscious choice with Victor to make a character who, like, his life's not so bad. I mean, obviously it's gotten incredibly more complicated over these 3 seasons, but I very much made him to be. I'm like, well, he's rich, he's famous, he's living like the club life and gonna stay young forever. Like he's like all good, like he's happy, enjoying things. Even when his beast comes up, if you notice, for the most part, like his beast will like he tends to agree with his beast a lot of the time, which I guess is more Sabat than Anarch. But hey, my beast knows how to talk to me. But that was a very conscious decision of mine, even in creating the character of Victor. Because if you haven't seen it, we did a one shot in December of 2017 where we did vampire for Cherry D20. I just posted it on Twitter the other day. If you can't find it, hit me up. I'll send you the link. For Satine Phoenix's Cherry D20 in December 2017, which was both the first time I ever met Jason and also the first time I ever played on stream. And I played a Gangrel and had a great time with it. And so when we fast forwarded to LA by Night was going to be a thing, a lot of people thought I was going to play a Gangrel again. And I was like, no, I want to play a Ventrue because I love Ventrue. And I knew that even if I had played a Gangrel, if I had played the world's best Gangrel, like if I became an iconic Gangrel, in the back of my mind, I always would have been like, should have played a Ventrue though, right? And I also knew that LA by Night was expressly introducing Vampire to a new generation of players, and that we were kind of the standard bearers for V5. And so it was going to be up to us to show people what these clans were and what they meant. And a lot of times people only play Ventrue like the stodgy business vampires. And so I wanted to be able to show another side of the clan. And that was the character concept for Victor. That's where he came from. And then along with what I said, like, what do you want him to be? My original idea for him was a non-douchebag Shook Knight. That was my core concept. And then everything was built around that. So pick something like that of, here is my guiding principle of this character, at least initially. They're going to grow, they're going to change, they may move closer to it or further away from it, because that's drama, that's narrative. But at least have that in your mind, because as they grow and you grow with them, that's how they become iconic characters that stick with you, right? Um, Same thing, even in the fantasy setting. If you're like, I want to play a ranger, I mean, okay, you're like, well, I want to play a Horizon Walker ranger. Cool. Why? You know, um, are you an ex-military soldier who's walking the earth looking for your lost comrades? Are you are you a 10 ranger, one cleric because you found religion late in life and are trying to atone for your misdeeds? Are you a paladin warlock whose soul is being pulled in different directions, where you have an infernal calling in your blood that you're trying to repress while doing good in the meantime? There's 100 different ways to do it. But when you start to build up that story around it, that's interesting. That's interesting. Just being like, I'm a barbarian, maybe less, um, I'm a gnome barbarian who can only speak Draconic, and has to run naked every full moon. That becomes interesting, right? Now, I myself am a min maxer, as you know. I do not like mechanically inefficient characters because being bad at things is not interesting to me. The dice will betray you plenty. So give yourself, the best opportunity to be good at what you're good at. Not everybody feels that way. Again, Alex loves being a disaster child. Alex loves being in out of his depth and having everything go like crazy and wrong. I do not. So when you're after you have your character concept, then you got to ask yourself, like, well, what do you want to be good at? you know Part of the reason why Victor is so strong in Dominate is I knew from day one, episode one, I was going to specialize in Dominate, and I did that for one reason. It was the one power I had no one else had. Everybody else, Annabelle and Nellie both have the presence, that same discipline as me, and I'm the only one that has fortitude, the physical durability, but that's boring on screen. How do I communicate that, like, I can get shot and be okay if nobody's shooting at me? So I that was why I made the narrative choice to specialize in Dominate. Fast forward 3 seasons, it's kind of worked out really great, but that was the logic. Had I played a Gangrel, I probably would have tripled down on animalism, because that's the one thing no one else or protean. I think, does Jasper have some protean? I probably would have tripled down on protean, because even Ramona's character with the animalism and the rats. Um, but I would have chosen to focus on doing something no one else can do. Um, Usually, a lot of times my design sensibility with characters, especially in RPGs, is I try to be like kind of T-shaped, in the sense that it's like I almost have some skill in everything and then really dive deep and specialize into something. Um, but your mileage may vary, but I think as long as you know in advance who this character is and what you want them to be able to do, then that will inform some of your mechanical decisions. And some games are more forgiving than others. Like previous editions of D&D, the tier system being what it was, a vanilla fighter was just bad compared to a druid. They just were, you know. Fifth edition, it is definitely more balanced out than that. Um, but like one of the concepts that I'm working on right now, and I've it will have to be at a in a high level game. And honestly, if you end up playing D&D with me, you may encounter this NPC. Spoiler alert, because I'm working on it, trying to make it right. It work is a 4 class character: warlock, bard, paladin, sorcerer, because they're all charisma based. And the way the character would work is they be celestial warlock. So something in their blood is speaking to them. The blood of the ancients, as the warlocks and the sorcery, um, having these like powers just come to them naturally that have always been with them. Whereas the bard side of things is they've made a conscious choice to become a storyteller and a wanderer, because maybe they're still trying to find their place in this world. I don't know. I'm still working it out. But if you notice, the idea is it's an interesting thing. It is not necessarily optimal, but I think some unusual synergies will come out of it. But they're still built around the guiding principle of one, charisma. So mechanically, it's not terrible. And this idea that something in your blood is calling to you and you don't know where it is or where it's leading you. So that's cool. You can tell a lot of stories about that, you know? So when you're looking at what you're going to do, don't just be like, I'm a Nosferatu. Well, what else? I'm a Nosferatu who was a mob accountant, and I know where all the money is buried, and I'm slowly fleecing them every night because they think I'm dead. That's cool. Um, I'm a Camarilla sympathizer, who has only joined the Anarch movement because my sire got staked and destroyed by Nines Rodriguez, and I'm slowly finding a way to destroy him from the inside out. That's cool. So yeah, obviously I can speak the rest of the day about this, but and if you're not sure, also, don't be afraid to either hit me up directly, but you can also like Google like builds and stuff. Oh, bit my tongue. Sorry, that's the beast. Builds and things, especially for like it's more in D&D than it is in Vampire, where people have like assembled things that like work statistically and mechanically, and maybe you take that cool idea and then you're like, well, here's a character concept that makes that interesting and compelling. And then once you're actually playing to the best of your ability, when you step into that role, put it on and don't take it off, until you're done playing. So, yeah. So I think that's it. I think that's a good place to start. If you have any questions, hit me up. If you've recently joined, thanks. Looking forward to having some fun. If not, again, you've got till August 12th, where I'm running my promotion on patreon.com/B Dave Walters. And let's roll some dice and have a good time. And I will say in conclusion, go in peace and may all your hits be crits.